Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
But who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And what he do?
And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts, CLR. I am Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer. And lots been going on, a lot in the news lately. And today we're reacting to the death of young Dolph. Young Dolph was born in the 80s. He was born as Adolph Thornton Jr., but he goes by Young Dolph. Now, he was born in the 80s, and in the 80s, there was a real epidemic of crack. And both his parents were addicted, and he was raised primarily by a very strict grandmother. Now, later on in life, that upbringing came to influence him quite a bit, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But he passed away on Wednesday of this past week in a shootout. Now, he grew up on the streets. He had been rapping for quite a while, and he's got some really, and I'm going to kind of talk about some of his lyrics that are actually pretty prophetic. But he was gunned down in a cookie shop in Memphis. Now he's from Chicago originally, but when he was 2 years old, he moved to Memphis with his family, and that's kind of what he called home. He had this very distinguishable car. You can see it here in this photo. This is a surveillance photo that shows a couple of the gunmen. What happened was he goes into a cookie shop. He's getting some cookies for his mother, I guess, and these guys show up. You can see the one guy's got what looks like a Draco, and the other guy's got a handgun, and they opened fire on him and gunned him down. Now, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. In 2017, he was shot in L.A. and almost left for dead, but he made it through. And in a couple of interviews, he said he's been targeted over and over again. The streets tend to follow you, especially if you're this higher profile individual. And, whether it's jealousy, whether it's, an old score or what, they don't have any suspects that they've really talked about quite yet. Here, we're going to play a little bit of the press conference, and I want you to look at this, and I'll just let it play, and then I'll come back on the other side and we'll talk about it. But you look first of all, you look at this gal compared to Sheriff Grady, and how dignified she is, and how serious she is. That's how you conduct yourself. Anyway, so let's take a look at that right now.
This afternoon, the Memphis Police Department responded to a person shot at 2370 Airways Boulevard. Our preliminary investigation reveals the victim is Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. This shooting is another example of the senseless gun violence that we have seen far too often locally and nationwide. Too many families, too many mothers, too many fathers have suffered in our city, and quite frankly, I think we are all tired of it. Our hearts go out to the Thornton family and all who are affected by this horrific act of violence. We're also dedicated to bringing those responsible for today's shooting and others to justice.
So, this really rocked the city of Memphis. They did wind up putting a curfew in place for a short period of time, because they were worried that there's going to be some retaliation, and I suspect that there will be. So, the police said that the shooters pulled up, they ran up into the front of the store, and they opened fire, pop, 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 and they just killed him. Now, this is the kind of crap that I've been telling you guys about, and it's just got to stop. But let's look at the lyrics of "Preach." I know a little bit about his work, and the song "Preach" I thought came out in 2014, and this is kind of the mentality of somebody who's growing up on the streets. Never trust a bitch. Never trust a fella. fuck bitches, get the Skrilla. Don't trust these motherfucking fellas. Never trust a bitch, fella, get Skrilla. In other words, don't trust anybody. It's all about the money. And, just let me read a couple more lyrics because I do find this kind of interesting. I don't fuck with these fellas because they shady. These bitches, they just want to have my baby. Now, for you guys out there, there's some truth to that, because if all of a sudden you have some means, guess what? They'll be on the annuity plan if you get somebody pregnant, and all of a sudden now you owe this child support. So you really need to be careful where you deposit your sperm. But that aside, what I like about young Dolph is he did kind of a 180. I mean, he had some artists that he was helping out. He was contemplating really cutting back on the music industry altogether because he wanted to spend more time with his children. He had 2 children, and they were young. And he went back to his hometown and started spending a lot more time there. He just recently gave 200 turkeys away on a turkey giveaway. This was his 3rd time doing that, and he also went back to his old high school, donated $25,000 to their athletic program. He was giving speeches, motivational speeches to young kids, and bringing young kids on stage. And the lyrics, in his songs are, they're a little bit thuggish, of course, but they have this to watch this guy kind of all of a sudden, who didn't have an upbringing, want to do something better, not only for his own family, but also for his community. I think is it's just sad that he got gone down like this, because this is a guy that was really doing some positive things with his life. And I know I do kind of preach a little bit about violence, about beefs. You're better off letting something go than letting it fester. You're better off living another day rather than trading your life for somebody's just because you're so fucking pissed off. And that's what can happen to you. You let your emotions get the better of you, and all of a sudden, I got to go get this guy. And that's the way of the street for the most part. But once we get to a point where we're not really on the street anymore, and the street just didn't leave him, and he's not with us anymore, and he's not with us anymore because we don't know why. In fact, the authorities couldn't identify a motive for the shooting, and it wasn't like he got into some beef with somebody right then and there. So I think, it's a sad day, but, I want you to take the message that violence solves fucking nothing. Doesn't follow that, if I do this, that I'm going to be better off for it. Because guess what? First of all, there's pictures of these guys out there, right? So we know what they were driving. We know what they were wearing. We know what kind of gun that they had. So, and there's other video, and in every city, there's just cameras everywhere, as you know. And so, I guarantee you what they're doing is they're piecing where these guys went. And I'll bet you within a week or so, we're going to see that they probably identify somebody. And then you've got snitches out there, people who are going to, no doubt, come forward and say, no, I know that this happened. Because here's the thing. If you wind up harboring somebody right afterwards, let's say they come to your house and they tell you that, I did this, and this, and you're hiding them out, it's called liability for crimes of another after the fact. And it's aiding an offender after the fact. And generally speaking, it's about half of what the sentence would be for the underlying crime. So if you're looking at murder 1, it'd be like 15 years for the aiding an offender after the fact. So, we'll keep on top of this, but I really, really like the story. He grew up in poverty. He grew up on the streets. This is a guy that he said he was working since he was 9 years old, but never punched a clock. In other words, he's doing business on the street. And he came full circle. He became successful, and he gave back to his community. He was somebody that was really positive. He didn't just throw money at a problem, although that is noble too. He gave time, and he gave a lot of his heart to young people and to his alma mater, his school, and to a ministry. So I can't tell you how much I respect the guy for coming from where he did to where he wound up, and it's just unfortunate that he was gunned down. I do see this all the time. Where you have somebody come to you and they might have messed up. It's either drugs or some other kind of. I had one guy from Cabrini Green, which is a very bad neighborhood in Chicago, and I couldn't understand it. He was such a wonderful guy, and he had an engineering background. I mean, he rose from that area and was able to rise above. But then he would steal credit cards. He figured out when a lock was unlocked at a health club, and he would slide his credit card out of the wallet, go to the store, and purchase a bunch of stuff, usually kids stuff, and then he'd give it all away at the neighborhood. And it was kind of an odd deal, but he wound up making amends for that, and now he's just this guy that came from poverty to being a very successful engineer, and had that hiccup, but hope springs eternal when you change over a new leaf, and it's never, ever, ever, ever too late to do that. And it's always noticed, and it's always appreciated, and you giving something back to somebody else, somebody that didn't have something, or just make somebody smile. If you just make somebody smile, you disarm them. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than people feeling heard, respected, which is complete opposite of this beef shit on the street. So I know I preach about this, and I'll preach about this until I can't preach anymore, because I really believe in peace. I really believe in all you guys and ladies, and you should do what's right. Do the right thing as much as possible. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to want to do the right thing. Sometimes it's very tough. But watching young Dolph transform to father and community leader, it really is quite something to see. Going from the street to community leader. So let's try to be a little more like the person that young Dolph strived to be. Rest in peace. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. And if you're watching this, subscribe. If you're watching this, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Patreon. You know what we do with that money from Patreon. And you can get yourself a hat. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.